All right, thank you so much for staying with Daybreak. The hashtag we're using is Daybreak. There's a lot of feedback coming through on the question we asked you: what is ailing the sports sector and what more can be done to restore Kenya's glory? Let's bring up some of them and hear what our panelists think of your solutions. Odia George says corruption, nepotism, tribalism and partisan interests are major roadblocks of progress of the sports ministry. We blame it all on the leaders.
All right. Sir Kyogo on Twitter says, sporting is a state of mind more and more than I'm guessing you meant to say than fitness. We need to mainstream sports in our curriculum and sports calling it extra. Let's support sports all round and give our sports people peace to focus and flourish.
All right, let's see another one here. Jacob Mbere says solutions in his point form. 1, proper leaders in sports. 2, opening of incubation centers and academies and funding and sponsoring structures. Our education model be inclusive of sport disciplines, parents, school orientation programs than books.
Okay.
Right.
Let's take a look at this. Another one, you say poor selection of sportsmen and women. It's done in an opaque manner. Also, those given responsibility to manage sports sectors are poor managers. The same narrative of corruption, nepotism, tribalism and favoritism. Oh, Kenya, my beloved country.
All right, Tom Olango 3. What's ailing the economy? The answer is hidden there. Lack of sound sports policies, investment in sports, bad leadership and corruption. There's leadership issues coming up a lot.
Corruption and funding.
Yes, let's see. Do we have another one here?
Jacob says corruption is the major problem in sports. That's why some players with skills are left behind when doing selection.
All right. Jacob Mbere says across our sports disciplines, each is faced with its own melodies, as from funding, patronage syndrome, lack of proper sport policies, facilities, doping and foreign interference, and poor incubation programs, as from grassroots. All right.
Jeffrey Koskei, you say we must appreciate the efforts that the national team showed. We have been out of the competition for the last 15 years. Qualifying in itself shows us that they are becoming better with each passing day. Next AFCON, we expect them to be in the best 16 or even best 4.
All right. Douglas, I'll start with you. There's a lot of issues being raised: leadership, curriculum, parental guidance, selection of sportsmen and women. Some people actually argue that corruption leads to the wrong selection of the sportsmen and women. So you don't make the final team although you're good, you just don't make it because you don't have the money.
It's not based on talent.
It's not based on talent.
Yeah, you know, when I started, I said the structures.
Yeah.
When you come to the structure, you might want to look at which structures the federations have. And then you look at, when you select athletes, you really scrutinize the athletes to make sure that they are good and they're fit. But when you go to the federations, there are coaches within the federation who hold posts, and yet they have athletes. They have agents that they manage athletes. So that's by itself basically is a conflict of interest, because it means if I am the one who is in charge there and I've seen a good athlete, the next thing to do is probably deny you a letter unless you are in my camp. Yeah. And those are some of the things that probably we are saying that should be looked into. Yeah. Policies should be put in place. You know, before we used to have a sports council. Yeah. I don't know what happened to sports council, because sports council would have streamlined all these issues that before they get to the ministry. Yeah. So that we scrutinize not only the athletes alone, because athletes are subjected to so much from things that happen every day, from even being denied opportunities to be in the team, while officials enjoy the other negative side of the policies, you know? So why do we have these double standards first? And that's what I'm saying. First and most, we should look at the structures that we have on the ground, and we must start from the facilities. Are they standard to the standard? Because you're subjecting our athletes to train on substandard structures.
Douglas, now that you're talking about structures, let's play a soundbite from Deputy President William Ruto and facilities. They did make a promise in conjunction with the president as well to have a lot of stadia. Just listen to what they said during the campaign period.
Talk today. In 6 months' time, the stadium in Wote will be complete. In 3 months' time, the stadium in Chuka will be complete. In 3 months' time, the stadium in Moyale will be complete. In 6 months' time, the stadium in Kamarin in West Pokot, which is historic, will be complete. In a couple of months, the stadium in Eldoret will be complete. In Nyeri, the president gave the title. There was a challenge of title. Now we have a title, and now the program has been rolled out. In Kiambu, in another 3-4 months, the stadium will be complete. We have challenges. We have a small challenge in Mombasa because the county government has issues of ownership of the land, although all the contracts and everything has been signed for, including the tartan for the stadium is in place. We have a small challenge again in Kisumu because the county government has not relocated the dumping site, which is next to the stadium, and international requirements dictate that you cannot have a dumping site side by side with a stadium. As soon as that is relocated, that process will be complete. So instead of 5 stadiums, we actually went for 9, just to make it good and to make it better. And for your information, just for your information, we are also spending close to 300 million shillings to refurbish Nyayo Stadium and this stadium here in Kasarani in preparation for the youth championships. So we are well on the way in doing that.
Mentioned 7 to be specific, and he mentioned that they're going for 9 despite the issues in Kisumu and Mombasa, but he mentioned Wote, Chuka, Kamarin, Eldoret. Have you seen this stadium?
Well, I think probably I will want to look where the policy is, what the policy says. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, there is nothing you can do without the policy. So basically, if that is a directive, then the policy implementers should have worked that and see that that happens, because that is a directive. And I think our biggest problem is probably not putting the policies, the right policies in the right place. If there is a directive today, what is then next need to be done is that the people behind that rush and make sure that that is passed, taken to the parliament or whatever, and then it's passed, so that we are all happy.
Yep. So it's just policies but no action. Benjamin, you know Nyayo Stadium was closed, I think, last year. And it's just mentioned that there's 300 million. It's not been opened because of refurbishment.
It's comical.
Yeah.
It's very comical. You know, Nyayo Stadium is, just as an example, how many kids have grown around Nyayo Stadium? How many are within walking distance? Maybe we're focusing on the wrong things. If you build 5 mini stadiums in Kibra, 5 mini stadiums in Kawangware, 5 mini stadiums in Mathare, and Dandora like Sonko has done, that's a much better deal. You know why? Because by the time he comes to Nyayo National Stadium, he should have gone all through all this. But he plays on the streets in town, comes and plays on grass in a stadium. You won't be any good. So first, I think it's a good gesture, but it's towards nothing. There's no result there.
Okay, let me rope in Saraj. You, as a sports lawyer, when you heard those promises that the Jubilee government had made, were they genuine promises, or were they just political noise at that time to fetch votes?
Lip service. That's exactly what it is. I mean, if you're going to have a directive for sport, you had better back it up. Because apparently sports policy has not changed in the last 30 or so years. Yet we're developing as a nation. And if you're saying that Kenya is a sporting nation, yet you're not putting any policies to implement those dreams or those visions that you have for our sports people, then you're doing absolutely nothing. And I'll give you an example. Recently, we filed a case in court on behalf of a sprinter, a Kenyan sprinter. There was a policy in place, or a policy which has come up through Athletics Kenya, which is denying him the chance to compete for Kenya, despite the fact that he had an anti-doping rule violation, but it was inadvertent. It wasn't an intentional doping case. But Athletics Kenya came up and said, for so long as you have a doping rule violation, that's it. You're not going to. Yeah, it's a blanket rule. You're not going to represent our country. It was not reversed. That's why we're in court today. And this particular sprinter is the fastest sprinter Kenya has. the fastest, world class. So we have to go to court to ensure that these policies are looked at from a better angle, to ensure that those who have talent actually compete at the global stage. Why should we have to do that?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
When it comes to the selection of leaders, sports leaders, from the CS position to the PS and so forth, do you think it should purposely be used to select, that role should be given to someone who was or is a sport athlete person? Because if you take a look at the people who have sat on that seat, beginning with Hassan Wario himself, who those 5 years he was CS of sports, his portfolio of sports was dented with corruption cases. We also saw Echeso, who was in that seat for about a month before he was fired earlier this year, March 2019, again corruption. If we had a sports person, a qualified sports person sitting as a CS, would we see corruption reduce in the sports ministry?
Look at it this way. Look at NOCK, for example. How long has Tegat been president of NOCK? How many changes have we seen in NOCK? It's because he knows what it takes. In the last year, I think, we have about 7 different departments that are going to make sports in Kenya grow within NOCK. All these things, all these chances were available. And he's not doing it himself. He's picked people to lead them. And we're probably going to see an increased performance in our medal collection at the Olympics. And that is what we're asking.
Okay.
It ought not to be, Trevor is my friend, so come
Give
on.
him the position.
Yeah, let's enjoy some money and some allowances. And that is what is ailing us. You know, the difference between a sports person who's done it and that has not is that he feels the pain of taking somebody else's. He knows the pain because he's been working, he or she has been working hard enough to know that if I take this off this person, they've been working all their life probably to just get this chance. Yeah.
Sarah,
So that's what makes a difference.
Do you think that if we had a CS or people in leadership who were originally from sports, they have been there, it would reduce corruption?
There's a difference. There's definitely a difference between those who are sports people at heart and how they choose to treat the sports fraternity. And I've seen it myself, even with just my own practice and speaking to people. Those who have had a sports background are more sympathetic towards the athletes and the troubles that they go through, and are willing to help athletes to progress and to actually prosper. If you do not have it, it's more difficult to try and explain to you why this is an important thing and why you should value it.
Okay, let's talk about rugby a bit. And I want to bring up some tweets. I think they were tweeted out in May, if I'm not wrong, by some of the players there. And they were showing very dismal issues that happen within the fraternity of the rugby team. And Aimba is here to answer some of those questions. Let's just bring up those tweets and then you see what I mean. And I think this was partly Dennis Ombachi. Said, I had a nasty injury late 2017 playing for the official Kenya Rugby Union in Dubai, and a few months later, my salary was more than halved and I was taken from tier 1 to tier 2. The mental torture and trauma I went through was too much. At some point, I broke my leg.
Oh my.
It's like for crying out loud, I broke my leg and my money was halved. Let's see another one also. It wasn't just Dennis Ombachi, and he still continues to say, William Baka says, I mean, it's sad traveling and living in all the 5-star hotels and coming back home to a locked house because they haven't paid rent. I mean, how do you expect results with this kind of environment? There is still more. So that is William Baka, and there's another one as well where they still say that there's issues that are facing them. William Baka goes ahead to say, or then, apart from the house being locked out, or a teammate calling you because they don't have money for food. And there's still more as well. This was the lamentation from the rugby players, just complaining about the situation that they have. We can still have another one there. Aimba.
Yes.
What causes such embarrassing moments, and yet we have the KRU?
For me, when you pick a path, this stories, it's very unfortunate that they're going through this at this time and space. Ombachi has got 2 degrees. Mbaka is not, I don't think he's qualified to do anything else other than rugby. When you pick a path, Trevor, be ready to stick with it.
Yeah.
Sport is the most, you know, I keep telling people, it's the harshest profession you can ever pick.
Just
Give
in
an
Kenya,
example.
though.
No.
In the
It's all
US,
over the world. I'll give you an example.
NFL players are the world's best speed.
It's things you don't hear.
But at least they have food, basic
Yeah,
necessities.
their
Yes.
houses will not be
It's-
locked.
Yeah, you look at the standards. How many people come to a rugby match? How many people go to a Super Bowl? Then you start looking
Is
at
it
those.
pegged on how many tickets that are paid?
You decide as a person, am I going to follow this am I going to suffer through whatever it takes for me to achieve what I want? Or am I going to whine halfway through? If 3/4 of us opened up what we've gone through doing rugby, the success these guys enjoy today was suffered by people like Sami Kakame over 15, 20 years ago. These are guys who are discontinued from university for playing rugby. They are discontinued from doing the education. So for me, it's unfortunate, yes. But you picked the profession. Nobody forced you to. If you decide that it's going to earn your bread, if it does not earn you the bread, find another way.
So you think they're just whining?
No,
Are they not genuine concerns?
they are very genuine
Even
concerns.
comes
Yeah.
2020,
They are very genuine
2030.
concerns. But let's look at it this way. 2015-2016 season. How much did the Kenya Rugby Union get of sponsorship? Zilch. It's the season we won a tournament. So how comes it didn't come through?
But where's
But
the
that's
gap
not
on
that's
that?
not the job
And that's
of the
what I'm
players.
saying.
That's the job of the leadership, the ministry.
And that's what I'm saying. It's not even the ministry. End of that season, because we played so well, they earned more than they've ever earned in their lives. Do well first. The situation we're in this season did not warrant us to be given anything. And I keep telling players. And for some reason, I think maybe we spoiled this generation as well. If in that season, 2015-2016 season, the highest paid player was paid 70,000 bob. But his bonuses added up to 300,000 if he played well in that month. So what were they going to do? Play well in that month, so you earn your keep.
But some people argue that when you're paid well and you know that you don't have other things to worry about, you can perform even better. The Harambee Stars
We were
went to
played
the AFCON
here
after they
well
were given
when
all
True
the
was here.
allowances.
True, Paul True
You were
was
the
here.
one who was talking about the mental state,
Yes.
the physical state.
Yeah,
if,
but
if I can't,
and that is
fathom
why,
how I'm
and
going
that
to
is
pay
why,
my
as a
rent,
player,
how
when
then
you
do I play well?
decide you're going to do it, be mentally strong and listen as well.
Be mentally strong to be locked out of your house.
No, you see, this is not the first lot to be locked out of the house.
But
remember,
that doesn't make it right.
yeah, it doesn't. What I'm just saying is, even as we want to blame other people,
Yeah.
they didn't do right by themselves.
For choosing a sport that they love to play.
They could have also
Every
said that
career
same
has
thing.
its own.
I think
Let's
there
see what
should
Sarah is
be-
shaking her head.
I completely disagree. There should be bare minimum standards. Okay, so bare minimum standards means you have at least a living wage that can sustain you. Even though
If-
you
Let her
picked,
finish.
even though you picked this particular profession,
Yes.
of course you understand all the ins and outs and everything that you're going to go through. However,
Yes.
if you're not paid on time, if you're not given medical cover, if you're not treated well, you do not have access to your physio, you do not have access to your training grounds. Women, even in athletics, completely bad changing facilities, right? Bare minimum standards. I think this is what these boys were asking for. Can we have
Which is
these?
true, which I
treated-
don't refute at all.
Yeah.
I don't refute that at all. If you went to law school and didn't have a job, who do you blame?
No, it's up to me to find the job. They have the job. They found the job. They're
But
saying the job
also-
is
They
not
did.
paying them.
There are
They're not
options as
being
well, aren't there?
treated.
Yeah.
They're
There
not
are
being
options,
treated
aren't there?
properly.
Douglas, even as you rope into the conversation, here's the thing. We've also seen a few of our runners sleep at airports, while others who are not even running will take a flight, get the restroom, and you expect to land the following day, run and
be
perform very
top-notch
well.
performance.
Is
You
this
know-
fair?
You know, all these things we are talking about is based on management and the policies. Number one, that most of our federations do, probably they rush 2 weeks before to ask for assistance, which they should have done it long time ago, because you have an event calendar every year comes, and you know your event is in December. So why wait until 2 weeks to go and ask all these things? So I think at the end of the day, we need to look at the welfare of our athletes. And this is during the event and after retirement, because that welfare probably doesn't come very soon. We are one of the countries that appreciate athletes when we win a medal. But on the other hand, we will dust you again when you're living in a pathetic situation. Rather than save it, we mess it up. So that does not help our young and upcoming athletes seeing what we should have been the role models, suffering at the end. All these stories come, and they keep coming every now and then. So why is it that we can't fix them? What is the problem? Is it the system? Is it the policies? Or it is just us being who we are that we don't see the importance of that? You know, and if we keep doing this every time, basically, we are not going to improve, because we'll just make the same problems worse. So what we need to do is, as I said from the beginning, we need to look at the structures of what we think sports should be in this country. Have we put the necessary policies in place? Are they working? Because there is no way a government office will work without a policy. Is that policy implemented? Has it been taken to parliament? Has it been approved? There are those systems. So if then you come tomorrow and you want to go to Europe and that policy is not working, then how are you going to be helped?
Sarah, Dennis Ombachi says he had a nasty injury late 2017 playing for rugby in Dubai, and a few months later his salary was more than halved and he was taken from tier 1 to tier 2. Does he have any legal redress for this sort of thing?
Ideally,
if you can prove that you got injured in the line of duty, so to speak.
Yes, so ideally there should be some regulation which deals with injury within the sport.
Is it
and therefore
it's actually you're given a time period.
Let her finish, then I'll come to you.
But therefore you have to look at the regulations of each individual sport discipline and see how exactly they treat situations dealing with injury. Is it a lifelong injury? Is it a temporary injury? How long will it take for the particular athlete to recover? And then based on that, the federation will make a decision on that particular
But the decision should not be to halve your salary, like you say.
It depends.
It's a performance.
Exactly. It's a performance-based contract. But at what point was it halved? So we don't have the full story behind the circumstances that happened for this particular player. Although I will say every player has a right to assert his rights within sport. And therefore, if he does have a genuine case, he should therefore take it up with the federation.
You can call now.
Go ahead. You're talking about the issue of injury. How is it handled?
With injuries, and this is all performance sports, the longest you'll be given is a year. In fact, in fully professional sides, it's 3 months. I played for a team called Penzance Pirates. It was a second-tier team in England. And we had a very good captain who had been signed up called Ludwig. Ludwig was South African, and he came to the club at the beginning of that season, so pre-season. We went through the pre-season. We started the season, and a month to close the season, he was diagnosed with a tumor in the brain. And it wasn't stated in his contract. The injuries that were taken care of were muscular injuries or breakages and stuff like that. And that one said that if the injury was going to last within a month and a year, then he'd be paid his 3/4 salary for the year until he recovered, and then he resumed. However, the tumor one was not there. He was given his 3 months salary and asked that we can't take it. Because this is a long-term thing and it was going to cost the club. Sport is also a business. So the club owners and people who put money into it want to return. Of course, with Ombachi's is a lot different, because even when he got injured, I think the physio did not take place in good time. And the worry was how quickly he was going to recover. What Ombachi also did not say that his lifestyle is not conducive for quick recovery.
Okay, now we did more details.
So it is very sensational to see something on Twitter and talk about it. But
The circumstances.
What did he do between his injury and the time he was going on whatever? So to avoid getting into those murky waters, he ought to be very, very genuine in how he handled the situation himself. Okay. Yeah. For Willie, I understand he's frustrated because he's tried two professional careers and they've failed.
Let me throw a spanner in the works. Because I am a woman, I will raise it. What about those who fall pregnant during a contract period?
Those are in professional whatever.
Like
with
especially
women
in
especially.
Rugby. Like now we have a very good rugby team.
Yes.
But I mean, as a woman, if I want to have a baby, it's my right. But we don't cater for maternity leave. We don't cater for.
You see, the thing about it is, and I keep saying, the challenge we have, especially with women's sport, and Kenya rugby especially, because it has been a sport that has not been traditionally played by women and frowned upon by the society, not many people put their money in it at all. So it is this same sevens team that brings money in, used by the under-20s, the 15s, the women's and everybody else. The resources are spread thin. So if anything has to be taken care of, it's got to be the goose that lays the golden egg first. And that's why the sevens team takes precedence.
And I don't think that's a problem, but still, Sarah has said that at the end of the day, even though I'm still playing for rugby or whatever sports it is for the nation, and if I become pregnant...
It is, and that is why Douglas was saying, things like policy are very important. And
policy.
It sounds very simple, but between the time the president gives a directive about which money has to be given to a sports person and the time that money is released, it could take 12 to 18 months, sometimes 3 years. That's how bad it is. And why? Because people at the helm do not realize that every day this goes on, Douglas has to run 40 kilometers and wear down his body, and he's got to eat and replenish. There's a rugby guy who's gotten so many knocks. He's got hairline fracture after hairline fracture. He's got still to fend for his food, and that is why it is important. And my solution would be, other than just putting in people who've done sports, we have the entrepreneurship fund. We can't all be entrepreneurs. The biggest employer of youth will be sport, because not many old people play sport competitively, except in certain quarters that we don't want to mention now. But the fact that there's 75% of the youth, and half of that can be employed by the youth fund, who will still be paying taxes to the government, why can't we restructure our thinking? I might be very good playing, but can never sell 3-4 mandazis. I'll eat the capital by the end of the day.
Okay. So we have to take a quick break now, but we have a lot of your feedback coming through. Let's sample some of them. And when we come back, we'll make recommendations to the leadership of the country in terms of the sporting fraternity, of what they need to consider. And our panelists here will be leading that when they just give us the recommendations, what they think needs to change, how it needs to be changed, and at what point. But for now, let's see what you're saying on Twitter. I believe Francis Kigondu says the problem in Kenya is that we think we can excel in everything. We should zero down on our strengths: athletics, rugby, women's volleyball, and possibly cricket or hockey, and invest massively. These nations we compete with are actually very good in only one sport. He continues to say Senegal thrashers in football but nothing else. India in cricket, South Africa in rugby, Japan in volleyball, Cuba in boxing, China in table tennis, etc. They may not be doing so well in many games, but where they zero in, they ensure they are the best. And these are big economies. Right.
All right, Kiola Victor says years ago, Britain invested millions from lottery funding into athletics, developing tracks, gyms, science, coaching, school systems. The result was a rise of amounts of medals at London and Rio. We see the likes of Elish the weightman, all coming up on the track.
Right. See, Tony Owino says sports remains the biggest youth employer in the country, but the government does not give the industry sufficient resources and attention. We'll talk about the sports fund in just a bit also.
Matters endorsement and sponsorship. Lazaro, you say nurturing sports talents among your youth should start from the grassroots. We must treat sports as a career the way we are treating politics. Management should include all stakeholders from the grassroots to the above.
All right, let's see if we have another SMS here we'd like to sample real quick just before we take that break here on Daybreak. When we come back, we find solutions to this issue on what is ailing the sporting industry and what more can be done. Omondi Olwande from Oranga says the road to sports development should start at a young age. Most sports persons in Kenya are sported after high school over 18 years. At that age, an athlete in Europe is already a professional. All right. Interesting. All right, that's where we leave it for now. We're taking a short break. When we come back, we have a list of recommendations of what needs to be done to ensure the sporting fraternity arises again. And there's also that argument that maybe we should just focus on athletics.
Okay, I will save my comments when we come back from this short commercial break. Let's take that break right now.